These are the most heavily protected black women in the world. Black women are said to be one of the most endangered humans alive. Now, imagine how much security a rich and powerful black woman would need. Here is a list of the most protected black women in the world and the crazy lengths their security teams go to keep them safe. At number 1 is Maxine Waters, an American politician who's been representing California's 43rd district since 1991. Maxine is an older, rich, and beautiful black woman who is known for her unapologetic stance on social justice, progressive policies, and democracy. You must have heard of her bold criticism of President Trump during his previous tenure. But while her sharp tongue has earned her a lot of admirers, it has also attracted some really dangerous enemies. Over the years, she has been the target of many death threats. Even her $2 million net worth hasn't saved her from several attacks. For example, after calling for Trump's impeachment in 2018, her Los Angeles office was vandalized with hateful graffiti. If that act was meant to shake her, it truly did. The vandals proved just how far they might go to silence her, but they didn't stop there. Now, the threats against her have even escalated, and she has been forced to bring out the big guns, so to speak. Maxine has literally tripped her security, and she is currently one of the most protected black women in the world. Her security details include U.S. Capitol Police, of course, to protect her while she's on the floor of Congress. But that's not all. For personal and public appearances, she has private security teams, along with armored vehicles, that protect her as she moves around her state. She obviously did not take the threats to her life kindly at all. And her private security details seem to show that they understand their assignment. They conduct thorough advanced scouting before letting her get into any building or event. And when she travels, the team uses discreet, counter-surveillance techniques to keep anyone from getting too close. And unlike other jobs, they don't get to go home at night. They watch her 24/7. They are always with her, monitoring her surroundings. So if there's any hint of danger, they can stop it before it escalates. The next on our list is a very talented actress, Viola Davis. With a net worth of $25 million, the How to Get Away with Murder, lead actress Viola Davis is an award-winning actress who's made history in Hollywood. She has been entirely instrumental in breaking barriers for black women in film and television. Just a few years ago, seeing a bold black face like hers on TV was unheard of, but she has now shattered that stereotype. But while black women love her, she faces something different from a few members of other races. In 2016, when she made history as the first black woman to win an Emmy Award for lead actress in a drama, her celebration was cut short by the vitriol and harassment that shook online spaces targeted at her. Her winning was met with so many hateful comments, racial slurs, and even threats from trolls. But that was just the beginning of it all. After her Emmy win, the attacks became more personal and even physical. Viola received so many death threats. Those threats tripled in 2018 after she spoke out about racism and police brutality. They were so bad the FBI even investigated them. Some of these threats were even sent to her home address. One of the most disturbing threats came when she was traveling to a high-profile event in New York. During her trip, she received an anonymous phone call with a strange voice warning her that something bad would happen to her if she attended. How evil. Well, bullies, especially online bullies, are usually lily-livered souls with the bravado of a lion but the heart of a fly. But just in case the threats were real, Viola took no chances in improving her security detail. Her home was immediately fitted with a state-of-the-art security system that included 24/7 monitoring, surveillance cameras, and motion detectors around her compound. She also employed a full-time security team, and now she never goes anywhere without them. These highly trained bodyguards travel with her and keep her safe, and they can do it very well since they are trained in personal protection, threat management, and even crowd control. They are so skilled they can immediately neutralize any sudden danger. Viola also moves around in armored vehicles now. She also has a discreet and strategic team she uses for transportation in case of an emergency. These are very smart measures that always come in handy, especially when attending large events like award shows, where the threat level can go from 1 to 100. Number 3 is a very pretty face, and everyone's favorite actress, Zendaya. Zendaya is probably one of the world's least controversial actresses. I mean, everyone loves her. She is even loved in the industry, and she always gets the best movie roles and fashion invites. Zendaya is also rich. She has an estimated net worth of over $30 million. That shouldn't surprise you. It is not every day that stars go from simply being child stars to becoming Hollywood royalty. But Zendaya made that transition so beautifully. But having that much money and being that famous can also be a recipe for disaster. Fame, especially, always comes with constant attention, or should I say, obsession. Celebrities often need the tightest security or things happen. Things like what happened in 2019. In 2019, Zendaya suffered a terrible shock when she realized she was being stalked. This creepy stalker even showed up at her Los Angeles home. But it wouldn't be the first time her fame had brought her in contact with weird and bad people. Would you believe it if I told you that Zendaya, of all people, has suffered constant threats from obsessive fans, and even death threats? Many obsessive fans have barraged her with direct messages and even tweets, asking to meet her or they would hurt her. It is no wonder she is currently one of the most protected black women in the world. She has even endured several tense situations with aggressive paparazzi, like in 2020 when she was surrounded by photographers while leaving a restaurant. Her security team has had to take extreme measures to keep her safe. And they are not just about protecting her from one threat. Nope. It is a comprehensive system that includes constant surveillance, personal bodyguards, and even advanced security systems in her home. And it doesn't matter where she is, whether she's filming a new project, attending a major event, or hanging out with her boyfriend, her team is always hovering around her, scanning faces to be sure no creepy stalker slips past them. And they don't only try to stop threats, they take it a step further. Before Zendaya attends any public event, her security team conducts sweeps in advance at the venues. They check for anything or anyone that might be a potential danger to Zendaya before letting her into the building. Her skilled team also works with local law enforcement agents while conducting these sweeps. These are not mere routines. They ensure that she is always safe, no matter where she is. At number 4 is an older black actress who was everyone's beloved even before Zendaya was born, Whoopi Goldberg. Yep, this is the iconic Whoopi Goldberg, who is very famous not only for being an actress, but also for her role as a host on the popular show The View. Now, this is one wealthy woman. She has an estimated net worth of $45 million. And it's no wonder that she does. She has been working even before most of us were conceived. One of her popular movies, Sarafina, is still one of the most watched South African movies of all time. All these mean one thing. Whoopi is not a stranger to fame and the spotlight. She is also not a stranger to the dangers the spotlight can bring. Yep, she has suffered threats too. During the 90s, Whoopi even had a stalker. And this was no ordinary stalker. This man followed her everywhere. When he got bored of only doing that, he began to send death threats too. The threats became so serious that she had to report to the cops. Immediately, the FBI set up an investigation, and that was one of the first times Whoopi's security had to be significantly chunked up. She has had to improve her security again and again since then, especially when protesters and demonstrators gathered outside her studio during heated political discussions on The View, where she said things many people didn't like. Well, what does her security team look like now? They no longer rely on the basics like they did in the 90s. Her team is now filled with really trained security personnel. This personnel had to make traveling their hobby, so they could travel with her to every show and public appearance. In fact, her bodyguards are now experts in emergency response, crowd control, and even personal defense. The FBI has also gotten involved a few times, especially since her dangerous stalker. They work with her team to make sure she's she's always under surveillance no matter what country on the planet she is, and no matter what she's doing there, whether she's filming, attending events, or just going about her day. After all, with a career as legendary as hers, she must be protected at all costs. At number 5 is a revolutionary, Angela Davis. Angela Davis has fought for justice her whole life, but she hit a nerve in the 1970s, and suddenly she became an FBI target. What happened? Her work with the Black Panther Party and her outspoken support for prison reform during the civil rights movement happened. She became part of a high-profile case that involved the kidnapping and murder of a judge in California. Even when she was acquitted of the charges, she was still arrested again and placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. But she still had many enemies outside than in. She received many anonymous phone calls and letters threatening her life. On top of that, one had to go into hiding after it became clear that extremists were preparing to take drastic measures to stop her from speaking out. Well, after she was acquitted, she immediately bolstered her security team. The Black Panther Party and other allies even set up safe houses for her in several cities. Both private bodyguards and government services handled her personal security. Since she was a treasure to the broad movement, highly trained men were sent to protect her, and some in the movement paid for these men to escort her everywhere. These officials did everything to protect her. They even renovated her home and fixed it with reinforced doors, security systems, and personal assistants trained in first aid. To date, she has paid the FBI dust, and her team is mainly handled by her trusted allies and professional security men. At number 6 is another badass woman in politics, Mutale Nalumango. Mutale Nalumango is the first female vice president of Zambia. She is the female vice president in a country where women face opposition in politics and are even despised. Mutale is one of these despised women. In 2021, when she was running for office, she was the target of many threats from many political rivals. Once, some extremists even plotted to harm her if she won the election physically. Luckily, she received a lot of anonymous letters warning her about the plot and advising her to lay low. But in Mutale's case, she was not the only one who suffered these threats. Her family members were harassed too, and even targeted too. It was so bad that she had to cancel several public appearances during her campaign because of threats against her safety. Well, Mutale could no longer take it and tripled the security around her. She upgraded her systems and even hired more men. Now, her security team includes bodyguards, intelligence officers, and even local police officers who watch for potential threats every day. But she also improved her personal security detail too. Now, they have communication systems and can respond to any suspicious activity immediately. She even travels in armored vehicles, and her drivers plan several other routes as plans B and C in case of an emergency. For her family, she made sure her home was fitted with high fences, strong security cameras, and monitored access points. She and her family also have access to a secure network where they can communicate with trusted officials in case of any threat. Zambia's government has also collaborated with international security agencies like Interpol and the African Union Security Organization to ensure Nalumango's security when she travels abroad. So when she travels overseas, the vice president is protected by the diplomatic security services of the host country, in addition to her security team. The 7th on our list is Samia Suluhu Hassan, Tanzania's first female president. You would think celebrity females have it bad until you delve into the lives of renowned women in politics. Samia Suluhu Hassan is one of the most famous black women in the world. She has made her mark as Tanzania's first female president and has made history with her sensible leadership and strict focus on economic growth and women's rights. You would think that every citizen in such a country would love her to bits. Unfortunately, they don't. When Samia became president after her predecessor died suddenly, she became a target for political rivals who were unhappy she was going to be sworn in, and they did nothing to hide their displeasure. In fact, they sent threats ranging from public calls for her removal to personal attacks. However, things became worse when extremist groups plotted to disrupt her presidency through violence. and there were other reports of attacks being plotted on her life, especially during her travel to regional summits. She also faced terrorism threats from groups like Al-Shabaab, which has attacked neighboring countries. Samia did not take any of these lightly. She swung into action and upgraded her security to the highest level. Samia added military personnel to her personal security details and made sure they were skilled in close protection and threat management. She purchased more armored vehicles, and even her motorcades are now protected by heavily armed escorts. Her home and offices are also protected with security systems like biometric access control and camera surveillance. She left no stone unturned. Even her communication lines are now encrypted so that all her confidential calls can remain secure. She and her team also have regular security briefings, during which she updates and upgrades her team regularly. Also, the Presidential Guard, a specialized unit of the Tanzanian People's Defense Force, currently provides her with more 24/7 security. But even the First Lady of South Sudan has had to boost her security too. Rebecca Nyandeng de Mabior has a net worth of over $700 million. She is a women's rights activist who has had a front-row seat to some of the world's most dangerous political movements. In 1956, Rebecca was only a baby. That baby grew to become a key figure in the peace negotiations that eventually led to South Sudan's independence. She didn't just play a part in the negotiations, she hit the streets too and began campaigning for the rights of women and children in South Sudan. She referred to it as a war-torn country where peace often felt elusive. But as a popular activist and political leader, Rebecca is no stranger to danger. In fact, she has faced many life-threatening situations just for speaking out, and her enemies have made numerous efforts. In 2011, Rebecca was the target of a kidnapping plot planned by rebel forces. It would have been such a sad day for Rebecca and her family, but fortunately, the plot failed at the last minute. Unfortunately, there were many more from where that came. She was attacked so many times she was forced to run from place to place, using hidden routes to avoid being caught. At times, her security was even compromised. Soon, she couldn't trust anyone and had to travel in disguise to avoid being spotted. Even with all that, she still received many direct threats from armed militias who explicitly said they would harm her if she continued advocating for peace. One of such happened in 2014. Rebecca received death threats from government factions who were angry that she opposed President Salva Kiir's administration. If they were minimal in 2014, they tripled in 2016, and her convoy was even ambushed by armed men in Juba, the capital city of South Sudan. The attack was linked to the Sudan People's Liberation Army. Luckily, they failed. Her family did not escape the threats. In fact, her husband was even detained by security forces in 2018. Rebecca Nyandeng de Mabior is now South Sudan's first female vice president. She is still a prominent figure in the peace process and even tries to impose sanctions on factions to end the war. Naturally, the factions don't like that, so they don't like Rebecca. In fact, she has now become a target for rebel groups and political rivals who are determined to silence her. Soon, the government had had enough and swooped into action. They provided Rebecca with elite security details, including intelligent officers and even militia. And it is a good thing since Rebecca is too important an asset to lose. Before 2014, she had just a few bodyguards, but now she has highly trained security professionals who follow her everywhere. She is even protected by the Presidential Guard, an elite unit of the South Sudan People's Defense Forces. Her whole team also had to undergo extensive training in counterinsurgency tactics, as well as other skills. From then on, her every move was and is still being monitored by local intelligence. Her security team is also equipped with some of the most advanced technology available, including satellite communication systems, surveillance drones, and night vision cameras. With all those high-end cameras, threats to her life can be stalled even when they emerge without warning. Her home also enjoyed a major lift. Her home and office were equipped with advanced security systems, including bulletproof windows, reinforced doors, and surveillance cameras. Now, she only travels in an armored convoy, and her routes are kept confidential. After the ambush, she survived, and she hired trained drivers who were experts in evasive driving. She also has armed bodyguards who are ready to defend her at all times. However, her biggest protector is the United Nations peacekeeping forces. Rebecca has often fled to their facilities for refuge during the few times she got intel of some planned attack. For example, during the 2013-2018 Civil War in South Sudan, Rebecca had to seek refuge in the UNMISS compound in Juba. Currently, there is also a system that allows Rebecca to communicate with high-ranking officials at any time of the day.